When someone casually asks about your childhood, and your mind suddenly goes blank, not because it was awful, not because it was perfect either, but because somewhere between the ages of about 7 and 17, entire chapters went missing. That pause, that hesitation before you answer, that's what I want to talk about today. There's a particular kind of experience that happens when childhood ends earlier than it should. And no, it's not always marked by some dramatic movie scene moment. Sometimes it's almost invisible. It might look like cooking meals for your younger siblings before you even know how to ride a bike properly, or becoming the emotional middleman between adults during arguments you never asked to hear, or learning how to read the mood of a room long before you learned how to read full books. And here's the part that doesn't get discussed enough. That version of you, the one who had to mature too quickly, never actually disappears. It still sits quietly in the background, shaping how you think, decide, and relate to people even now. Picture this: a child, maybe 8 years old, suddenly becoming the most dependable person in their household, not because they volunteered, because no one else could. Something fundamental shifts at that point. Psychologists refer to this as parentification, when a child steps into responsibilities meant for adults. But that word feels insufficient. It doesn't quite capture the weight of being small and holding together something enormous. Researcher Dr. Lisa M. Hooper has found that children who grow up this way often appear unusually mature. But here's the key detail: that maturity isn't true emotional development. It's a survival response. It's a young nervous system learning that crisis mode is the default setting. What felt normal to you was often someone else's emergency. As adults, many people shaped this way notice they're exceptionally skilled at certain things. You can read emotional shifts instantly. You know how someone is feeling the second they walk through the door. You anticipate needs before they're spoken. You solve problems automatically because, growing up, not solving them was never an option. Where this starts to surface later is in the cost attached to those abilities. The same strengths that once kept everything afloat begin to demand payment decades later. Here's the paradox. People who were forced to grow up too soon often struggle most with the simplest acts, not major life crises. Those are familiar territory. It's the small, quiet things. Asking for help, resting without guilt, being playful, letting yourself be messy or carefree. Those things can feel strangely unsafe because early on you learned that things only stayed together as long as you held them together. That lesson didn't just stick, it became the foundation of how you operate. And that operating system, it's still running. In adulthood, this often looks like being the reliable one, the person everyone turns to in emergencies, the one who just handles it. You may find yourself drawn to people who need fixing, not because you want to rescue anyone, but because being needed became your earliest definition of love. Relationships can feel complicated. True intimacy feels exposed. Vulnerability feels risky. Because once upon a time, you couldn't afford to fall apart. So even now, even when you're safe, even when someone genuinely shows up for you, there's a part of you that refuses to fully relax. You might notice a pattern of connecting with emotionally unavailable partners. And before you judge yourself for that, understand this. Unavailable feels familiar. It feels like home. Home was a place where you gave endlessly and learned not to expect much in return. So when consistency and care appear, they can feel uncomfortable, like waiting for something to go wrong. Then there's control. Not the obvious outward kind, but the quiet need to manage every variable. Because unpredictability once meant chaos. It meant things collapsing. So you plan, you overthink, you run mental simulations for the smallest decisions. People may label you anxious, perfectionistic, or type A. But what they're really seeing is a child who learned that letting go came with consequences. The exhaustion you feel, that deep, bone-level tiredness sleep can't fix, that isn't laziness, it isn't weakness, it's the result of a nervous system that's been on high alert since childhood. Your body never learned what true rest feels like because rest once felt unsafe. Another thing often shows up around success. You achieve, you build, you accomplish impressive things, and yet it never feels like enough. There's always a voice whispering more, faster, better, because your worth became tied to usefulness early on. And here's the cruel twist. The world rewards this. Society loves people who grew up too fast. We're productive, independent, low maintenance. We get things done, but rarely does anyone ask what it cost us to become this way. You also become fluent in emotional labor. You can sense tension instantly, diffuse conflict before it escalates, make everyone else comfortable while quietly neglecting yourself. And often, you don't even notice you're doing it anymore. It's automatic, like breathing. Except breathing is meant to sustain you. This slowly drains you. You might find yourself surrounded by people and still feel profoundly alone, not lonely, unseen, because no one notices how much effort it takes to keep everything running smoothly, and asking to be seen feels like admitting failure. So how do you heal something that doesn't feel like it qualifies as trauma, when it wasn't one catastrophic event but thousands of small moments of being too much and not enough simultaneously? First, you grieve, not dramatically, honestly. You grieve the childhood you didn't receive. The version of you who could have been needy, chaotic, careless, and still been safe and loved. Acknowledging that loss doesn't make you ungrateful, it makes you truthful. Second, you learn slowly that being needed is not the same as being valued. Your worth isn't measured by productivity or emotional management. You are not a human doing, you are a human being. And being is enough. You're allowed to rest, to not have answers, to be held instead of holding everything together. You're allowed to be a beginner at receiving care. Age doesn't erase the fact that you never learned how to let someone else carry the weight. So give yourself patience as you learn now. That child who grew up too soon did something extraordinary. They were resourceful, resilient, and brave. But they don't have to run the show anymore. It's safe to rest. It's safe to share the load. It's safe to rediscover play, even if you're late to it. You've been gripping the world tightly for a very long time. What might change if you finally loosened your hold? If this resonated with you, consider subscribing. And if you'd like to support these deep explorations, you can hit the join button to become a channel member. I'd truly appreciate it.